At 26, Kenna is released from prison after serving 5 years of involuntary vehicular manslaughter in the death of her boyfriend Scotty. Although she understands the risk, she heads back to her hometown, determined to meet her daughter DM, born while she was in prison and now being raised by Scotty's parents. Her first night in town, Kenna searches out a bookstore she loved to visit only to find it now a bar. She goes in for coffee and then momentarily intrigued by the attractive bartender, who turns out to be the owner, Ledger Ward, a former professional football player and one of Scotty's closest friends. Ledger, for his part, cannot stop looking at the sad-eyed woman sitting by herself nursing a cup of coffee. He does not know who she is. Ledger lives across the street from Scotty's parents and has developed a friendship with DM. Over the next several weeks, Kenna and Ledger gets to know each other. To avoid any public commotion, Kenna tells Ledger her name is Nicole, though he eventually realizes that Nicole is Kenna. Kenna takes a job as a cashier at a grocery store. Kenna believes that the best way to meet her daughter is to go up to the Landry's front door and simply tell them how sorry she is. She appeared catatonic during her trial, which the town mistook for Kenna's indifference. Only interference from Ledger, who physically carries her out of the Landry's yard, stops Kenna from what Ledger assures her would have been an ugly scene. Ledger tries to explain to Kenna that the Landrys are trying to put their lives back together. A heartbroken Kenna is still determined to meet her daughter. As Ledger sees Kenna's emotions, he struggles against the town's perception of Kenna as some heartless monster who left Scotty to die on a remote rural road. Kenna is empathic about one thing. She wants to see her daughter without destroying the world Scotty's parents and Ledger has given her. As sightings of Kenna begin to circulate the town, Scotty's parents secure a restraining order banning Kenna from getting within 500 feet of her child. The more Kenna confides her pain to Ledger, the more they begin to fall in love. Ledger was engaged, but his bride was not comfortable with the level of involvement he maintains in DM's life, and the couple broke up. When Kenna and Ledger finally make love, Kenna discovers a deep satisfaction in intimacy that she had all but forgotten. The two are in love. Kenna is crushed by the restraining order and thinks about leaving town altogether. After all, the Landry's family is fine and her daughter is happy. To help Kenna save money to leave town, Ledger offers her part-time work in his bar. It is only when Roman, Ledger bartender, confronts Ledger that Ledger begins to see Kenna in a different light. Roman reminds Ledger how often Ledger has given the people who work at the bar, including Roman himself, second chances. Ledger is convinced he might have judged Kenna too harshly. When Scotty's parents learn that Ledger is seeing Kenna, however, they ask him to choose between Kenna and the Landrys. Kenna reveals to Ledger that she writes letters to Scotty, which helped her during her imprisonment. There are now more than 300 letters. Ledger asks Kenna whether he might read a letter that would explain the accident that killed Scotty. Reluctantly, Kenna reads it to him. The letter reveals how both Scotty and Kenna were drinking that night, but that Kenna was slightly less intoxicated. The car, with Kenna at the wheel, went into a skid and ended up flipping over in a ditch. Kenna showed that Scotty was dead and that she was to blame, walked home in shock. She would not find out until the next morning that Scotty lived for more than 6 hours after the accident, bleeding to death on the highway. She is beyond grief, later reflected in her catatonic appearance at her trial. Ledger now sees how the town has harshly judged Kenna. He is determined to schedule a meeting between Grace, Scotty's mother, and Kenna. Ledger shows Grace a copy of the letter and she is overwhelmed. She spent 5 years demonizing the girl who killed her son, but now she sees the circumstances of the accident in a far different light. She wants Kenna to know she now forgiven her for the accident. With Ledger's help, Grace goes to Kenna's apartment. There she and Kenna embrace in tears. Grace promises to introduce Kenna to Dime. Kenna comes to the Landry home for dinner and meets Dime. The two hit it off right away, and for the first time in a long time, Kenna feels joy. 2 years go by. Kenna and Ledger now live together across the street from Dime and the Landrys. Although for the sake of keeping Dime's life stable, Dime still lives with her grandparents. She often stays with Kenna and Ledger. Kenna and Ledger now have a child, a son they have named Scotty.